I do believe that this situation we're in right now is a direct consequence of a radical green energy policy by the Biden administration that wasn't taking into account the consequences of America giving up its energy independence.
Stephen, you are 100% right. I have been calling this the Green New Deal war because absolutely this should not have happened.
All right, well, that was Stephen Moore on Fox News, finding yet another way to blame Russia's invasion of Ukraine on the Biden administration and this whole notion that we're not energy independent, even though the United States is the top oil producing and top natural gas producing country in the world. But of course, you got to carry water for the fossil fuel industry because they can't get enough of the drilling and the fracking. They want to do more of it. Now, I want to tell you what the reality is of this situation. We're going to debunk the lies yet again on this issue. But before we do it, why don't we watch more of what Stephen Moore had to say, unfortunately.
The entire Russian economy is really financed with oil. And it is so frustrating and even almost immoral that here we are in a situation today where we're now actually importing oil from the Russians, and that would not be happening if Donald Trump were president today. Under President Trump, 14 months ago, the United States was independent of oil from Russia and Saudi Arabia. So I do believe that this situation we're in right now is a direct consequence of a radical green energy policy by the Biden administration that wasn't taking into account the consequences of America giving up its energy independence.
Stephen, you are 100% right. I have been calling this the Green New Deal war because absolutely this should not have happened.
It would be difficult, right, to call this the Green New Deal war when we didn't pass the Green New Deal, not even close. How do you call it the Green New Deal war when we don't have the Green New Deal? What? Again, the United States, top oil producing, top natural gas producing country in the world. Now, we do export quite a bit of our natural resources because they're controlled by corporations that are looking to maximize their profits. But let's take a look at what happened under the Trump administration, because Stephen Moore lied there and would have you believe that Trump would not be importing oil from Russia. No, he would never do that. Except back in 2017 when Trump was president, how much crude oil and petroleum were we? Okay, so in terms of thousands of barrels per day, okay, so there you see the increase on the import of Russian oil. Let's go to the next graphic. 2017, you see that 4,667, and this is
in thousands, so
in
it's actually a million
barrels per day, right? And then you see that number increase throughout the Trump administration. Okay,
we would never rely on Russian oil, except for the numbers that say we relied on Russian oil under Trump.
Exactly. So that's point number one. But point number two, and I think this is a more relevant point. Okay. You never hear about the financial motives behind the people that cable news shows bring on to make these points. Never. You never hear about where they work, where they get paid from. And I feel like we should provide that service since Fox News refuses to disclose that information. So Stephen Moore, where does he get paid? How does he make his money? Well, if you look at his Twitter bio, he's actually kind of open and honest about it. He's the author of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. He's also a senior economic contributor at FreedomWorks. Keep that in mind. We're gonna elaborate on that a little more later. He's also a writer at the Wall Street Journal. He used to be on their editorial board, a founder of Club for Growth. The whole point of Club for Growth is to cut taxes on the rich. And he's a strategic partner at 32 Advisors, a former economist at the Heritage Foundation. Okay, important to keep those think tanks in mind. Now, FreedomWorks, I said we would elaborate, so let's do it, exists to build, educate, and mobilize the largest network of activists advocating the principles of smaller government, lower taxes, free markets, personal liberty, and the rule of law. Now, Cenk, free market, like if you apply the notion of free markets to oil and gas, right? You have corporations controlling it. They get to do as they wish, as they seek to maximize profits. Are they gonna keep the natural resources within the United States to keep prices down, or are they gonna export to get the highest amount possible for that?
Well, the free market would indicate that you would always try to get the highest price, including exporting oil from America to other countries if you can get a higher price that way. And lo and behold, all of our oil companies have done that. And now Stephen Moore knows that they're exporting the oil. In fact, if you listen to his suggestion and you followed it mechanically, you would have to institute socialism in this country. Because he's saying we need to be energy independent and we don't want to get that oil from Russia or any other country. Well, actually, we can have that independence. We produce enough oil and gas here in America for energy independence. So what we would have to do is seize the assets of those oil companies. Chevron, ExxonMobil, et cetera. We are seizing the American oil under American soil, and it is now our oil, and we can make it any price we like. So Stephen Moore, if you like, we can do that. Do you want to do that? Oh no, you don't want to do that. You're lying, and all you want to do is increase oil production so that the people funding FreedomWorks make way more money, and it has absolutely nothing to do with energy independence.
100%. They are exploiting Russia's invasion of Ukraine to push for looser restrictions on drilling for natural gas and oil. So let's give you some more information about FreedomWorks. So FreedomWorks has some fascinating funding that you should know about. It was once known, by the way, as Citizens for a Sound Economy, which was, by the way, founded by the Koch brothers.
Oh, look at that. I wonder how Koch Industries makes a lot of its money. Could it be oil and gas? Oh, right, it is. What a funny coincidence. I'm sure that has not affected Stephen Moore's thinking at all as he pushes for us to give more unregulated drilling permits to oil and gas industry.
Right. Now, how much money was this organization funded by the Koch brothers? Citizens for a Sound Economy received $12 million from Koch family foundations. The organization then split into FreedomWorks and Americans for Prosperity. And for any viewers who might not be familiar with the kinds of causes that the Koch brothers like to bankroll, I'd love to inform you about it. Koch-controlled foundations gave out $196 million from 1998 to 2008, much of it to conservative causes and institutions. That figure doesn't even include the $50 million in Koch Industries lobbying and $4.8 million in campaign contributions by its political action committee, putting it first among energy company peers like ExxonMobil and Chevron. Since tax law permits anonymous personal donations to nonprofit political groups, these figures may actually understate the case, meaning that they've very likely contributed quite a bit more money to causes that would help to maximize their profits by pushing these free market talking points.
So that was in 2008. It has gotten substantially worse since then. And the dark money groups have grown to gigantic size, so they could funnel most of their money through dark money groups now. But Jane Mayer has written brilliantly about Koch Industries and how it finances think tanks, and they view it as marketing. So they purchase the opinion of people like Stephen Moore. They make them write papers that would increase oil and gas production and oil and gas profits. So the more you pay at the pump, the more money they make. And they send Stephen Moore out to make it worse while pretending to care about making it better. Oh, I'm so worried about gas prices at the pump. That is why you should give the Koch brothers everything they want in terms of drilling permits here. Or Stephen, again, if you like, if you actually care about what you're saying, we could make Koch Industries sell the oil that they got here to Americans. By the way, there's another thing we could do about the price of the gas pump. They're making an unbelievable profit margin at those companies, including Koch Industries.
Yep.
We can mandate and say, and by the way, there was a governor that did this. Sarah Palin did it in Alaska, and it got her an 80% approval rating. So we could say, hey, you know what? Those companies that made it here in America, that are American companies, they must sell here. and they must give us a portion of their profits because it came from American natural resources. You want to agree to that, Stephen Moore? All of a sudden, you're going to be unconcerned about prices at the pump, right? Because that's your daddy talking. So Fox News, by the way, does that and has him platformed. They never explain who he gets paid by, and then they pretend that this war, which is about oil, is actually about renewable energies.
It's insane.
What?
It's absolutely insane.
And so that leads me to one last thing. Stephen Moore at the beginning of those clips said, the entire Russian economy is based on oil. Well, that would mean by definition, if we switch to renewable energies, the bad faith actors in Putin's government would be screwed. And he said it's immoral to continue that state of affairs. Good news, renewable energies would end that state of affairs. But they would also end your profits, Stephen Moore, and you didn't tell them, did you?
Right.
And in Fox News, you didn't tell your audience, right? Because these people lie to us on a regular basis as part of their business to make more money and to trick good Americans into voting exactly against their own interests.
And remember, guys, Joe Biden has the unilateral power to stop fossil fuel companies, oil and gas companies from exporting these natural resources to other countries during a time of emergency. So he could do that for up to 1 year. But that is not the point that you hear from any of these right-wingers complaining about oil prices. None of them make that point because none of them want to have any control over these corporations that drill for oil, do the fracking. They want to protect the profits for these individuals, mostly because they're also making money from the very interests who want to continue exporting. That's the way it works. That's what's really going on here.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.